Today's guest is a award-winning filmmaker with over 40 films screened internationally. Her work has been recognized by many festivals over the world, and her latest film is a part of the Sundance Film Festival lineup. Please welcome Lindsay McIntyre.
Ducked off low key, yeah, you know me. Hey. Kickin' with Tyree, hit it 3 like Kyrie.
First, I want to congratulate you on being selected for Sundance. Could I have you introduce yourself and talk about your journey into filmmaking and making documentaries?
Sure. My name is Lindsay McIntyre, also known as Aksarniq. It's my name in Inuit. I'm a filmmaker based in Vancouver, British Columbia. I've been making films for about 26 years now. Mostly make short films. I've made about 45 different projects. A lot of them are experimental, made on analog film. I got into film by finding a piece of film on the street in New York and taking it home and trying to figure out what I could do with it, and got sort of really into its physical properties and started playing with it as a material rather than as like a storytelling device. And then I was sort of hooked from there.
That's interesting. And it kind of shows in your work today, it's continued how you use materials to kind of shape the way the film looks. Where did you get the initial idea for, is it Tuktuit?
Tuktuit.
Tuktuit,
yeah, which is
okay.
the Inuit word for caribou, for
Okay.
multiple caribou. Yeah. It's so what I always say is that I can really only tell stories that are mine. And so I make films to process things that I'm dealing with. And in Tuktuit, what I was working with, or part of the idea was that I wouldn't be alive if it weren't for caribou, because my family on my mom's side are Inuit and part of the Caribou Inuit. And so we subsisted entirely on caribou, or they did. And so I was thinking about what it took to make it possible for me to be in the world, and really thinking about those close relationships between these three sort of survivors in the North. If you think about caribou and lichens and Inuit, who've sort of largely subsisted in this somewhat harsh environment and have adapted around each other, and thinking about those interrelationships and how important they are, ecosystems, and also how delicate they are. So that was part of it. And then the other thing is that I like to make things really difficult for myself. So if there's a way to make something harder, then I'm probably already doing it. But if you've got some ideas and I haven't quite got there, let me know, because I'd probably be really game to take that on. So I thought, maybe I should try to make some emulsion out of the caribou, so that there's like this closer relationship between the form and the content of the film, and that there's maybe more of an engagement with the caribou. So the caribou DNA is both sort of like in the film, and then it's a film about caribou to a certain extent.
And that leads pretty much right up into my next question, where I felt like it was an observational documentary and it was very intimate rather than explanatory. And what made you take that approach where you could have went the traditional route, you went and did your own thing? What made you do that?
I think it's just my nature to do my own thing, but I think that it's more important to make space for people to find their own way through a film than it is to really forcefully tell them what you want them to think when they leave the theater. So that's what I do. And what I was saying before, but I can only tell stories that are mine, and that I'm making films to process things I'm dealing with. It's literally me thinking through the different components of a thing. And if it's not if it doesn't come from an authentic place, if it's not mine to say, then I'm not saying it. And so these were the things that I was exploring and the way that I explored them. And this is how it came out on film. So, there's text throughout. Those are some of the things that I was thinking as I was making. And this is just sort of, how it came about. So there are other films I've made. Most of them, like I said, they sort of live in a realm of what would be called experimental film or experimental documentary. I kind of think everything's a documentary and that documentary doesn't exist. So everything kind of lives in that realm. And then, yeah, trying to make space for other people to find their own way of thinking about those things, or taking something away from it that means something to them rather than specifically what it means to me.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just pondering on that. 'Cause I had a question that came up like halfway through your talking, and now I have one as you're ending. You say you like to challenge yourself and go past the limits that you think a film could have. Why do you think you are attracted to that, and you want to kind of do something that's hard rather than take the traditional route?
Because I learn things through failure. So
Mhm.
in one of my day jobs is that I'm a professor of film at Emily Carr University here in Vancouver, and I always tell my students on like the first day, like, I really hope you fail. And I don't mean like you fail, obviously, like the class or anything like that. But what I mean is that I hope you struggle. I hope that there's something that you come up against in what we're working through that is really, really difficult, and you have to change your approach. You have to change the way that you're thinking about it, because that's when we're truly engaged, and that's when we learn things. And so for me, making things more difficult or more challenging or more complex helps me understand them in another way. So it's not just like, I needed a picture of lichen, so I went and got a picture of lichen. I also processed the color film in developers made out of lichen, so I understood the lichen from a whole other
Mm.
level of working and thinking about the phenols that are in the lichen and how that interplays with the color couplers or the silver bromide or the different components of a handmade film emulsion. And I'm just trying to engage with those things and deepen that engagement. So um, if that means I have to make something really difficult for myself and really rack my brain and work really hard and think really hard, and even labor, I think is an important thing about it. This film I said is sort of like a way to honor what it took to bring me into the world, and part of that is the labor.
Mhm.
Everything was a lot more laborious back in my grandmother's time, and the work that it takes to skin a caribou hide and process it is immense. And so through making this film, I learned how to process caribou hide, and you can see me doing it in the film. And and I was really bad at it, like really, really bad. And I kind of loved that because it was like,
Mhm.
okay, this is like I'm learning something about what life was like for my family members and for many people still who live in Nunavut. I live in the South, or live in Inuit Nunat. And I was really, really deeply engaged with my subject matter, with the material, and all of the different ways that I could be thinking about caribou and its interrelationship between Inuit and lichen. So there's lots of things that I could have said out loud and made louder, made deeper declarations about what I believe and what I think about habitat disruption in the north and whatnot. But the way that I approach things and sort of like complexify things. Just this is the piece that came out of it. This is like my
Mhm.
learning process almost on film.
Yeah. And it gives you a new challenge to, try to perfect and get better at by learning to skin the caribou and learning the whole processes of everything. I feel like that. I feel like that's what brought like really dragged me into the film when I watched it yesterday. And what kept me engaged was like how unique everything felt and the textures used, the materials used. Um, I was fascinated by that. So,
Well, thank you.
um,
Yeah,
yeah.
it works out like to be kind of a collaboration in a way,
Mhm.
if I skin a caribou and it's rutting or it's mating or it's a male or it's a female, or depending on what that caribou ate will depend on how much like sulfur there is in the hide, and therefore how active that gelatin will be that I end up making that turns into emulsion, turns into the film
Mhm.
stock that I'm shooting for the black and white sections of the film. So it really is sort of like, what does the material bring to it? What does the film bring to it? What does the Caribou bring to it? And then what do I bring to it? So it's a collaboration in a way that is very enriching for me, and hope it is for audiences as well. So come check it out at Sundance.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to hear the feedback from that at Sundance. You said you're a teacher or a professor, and what this is kind of off the riff. What films do you recommend to your students when you're bringing them up?
Let's see. I teach experimental practices and a lot of like analog practices. So I'm really interested in films that do engage with materials and things. I think we have a lot of really, really talented filmmakers that are engaging with analog film. And really for me, that question is like, it kind of depends, because I do teach people, how to tell a story in film and try to encourage them in making the kinds of things that they want to make. But the things that I get really excited about are often things where people are thinking about film maybe more as an art form and using it as a medium to explore something that we wouldn't otherwise get to see in that way. So I know I didn't answer your question there, but there are there's a lot of really incredible films. It's such a hard one to answer because there's just so much out there. But it probably they're often quite obscure, sort of like experimental short films made on 16 millimeter, and those are the kinds of things that I'm really drawn to. And they do usually involve a lot of labor and a lot of like really understanding something as a material and engaging with it in different ways. So.
Okay. You kind of answered this question already. What do you hope that the audiences carry with them after experiencing your film?
So I would love it if everybody left the theater thinking and believing that the earth is not property. It's not ours to take from at will and exploit in the ways that we want to. We are part of the earth, and we need to respect it more. So I'm really interested in making things better and helping people understand the delicacy of certain components of Arctic ecosystems. There's caribou have the longest land migration of any land mammal in the world, and they rely almost entirely on this one particular kind of lichen that has subsisted and survived in climates that many things don't survive in. And those lichens take up to 200 years to get up to their full nutritional value, and the caribou rely on them so heavily that, when there's a burn event or we decide to build a road or make a mine or just do whatever we're going to do without thinking about how what we do affects everything else around us, there's a lot of potential destruction. And so, the film doesn't talk about that in such explicit terms, but that's really some of the motivating things that I was thinking about as I was making it, thinking about the caribou, thinking about the lichen, and thinking about those relationships. So.
And it's so important in this time, especially with all the data centers, the things that are being, pumped into our society as trying to become the norm. It is also destroying whole environments, whole cities. People are having to move out of their cities, their homes they've lived in for 20 years because this new thing that they're trying to push on us is destroying their home, destroying their lungs, the way they live their everyday life. So I feel like it's an important film to kind of sit back and take in.
Yeah, thank you. Some important parallels there for sure when we think about just what happens when we exploit things that maybe aren't ours to exploit.
Yeah, and you kind of take in the humanity of it all, and think about it. Think about us as the caribou, and,
Yeah,
and, and
yeah.
so I want to take it back to the beginning of your career. what was a film that really got you into film that was like, okay, I think this is something I can do with my career?
One of the first films that really inspired me is a 14-minute long film by Carolee Schneeman called Fuses. And it is one of those sort of handcrafted experimental films shot on 16 millimeter. And it's kind of about what it's a film about her and her relationship with her then partner, and it takes place from the point of view of her cat Kitch, and really plays with the boundaries between past and present, and the tensions between surface and subject, and the tension between form and content. And I really loved that film. It was incredibly inspiring and made me get so excited about film as a medium and what I could do with it. You know, what happens when I scratch it or paint it or cut it up or put tape on it or put it in this weird random chemical. And so it was sort of like a nonstop self-taught journey of playing with this medium and what I could do with it. And I've sort of never stopped being fascinated by it and working with it. I really love it. And that was probably the first film that really kind of got me.
That's relatable. I don't truly remember the film that got me into film. I think I've always just kind of been an arts kid in a way, where I went to art schools as a kid, and when I got to college, it was kind of okay. I was doing one major, which was business, and then I kind of got around arts via clubs. You know, my friend was in the Titan TV, and he asked me to help out on one of his like TV shows. He was doing a random late night TV show that was close. It was like Eric Andre if it was on public television. But he just asked me to come on and just play this random thing, and I was like, "Oh, this is what you guys doing here," and I kind of switched over from there.
Wow, that's really cool. Yeah, I mean, sometimes it just takes like one little introduction and you really get hooked on it. It's obviously like a vast and incredible world, like moving through like industry or episodic or animation or, you know, experimental film, documentary. And it is about stories ultimately, even though, you know, I don't have a very strictly story-based film here at Sundance, but it is about communicating and reaching other people and how you do that. And there's so many different ways to do that in the vast world of film. It's a pretty exciting place to be.
Yeah, I just shot my first live short because I
Hey,
normally work in
congratulations.
animation.
Wow.
Or I've
Congratulations. That's
shot
really great.
other live shorts. I just don't count. I don't count them.
I used
I
to want
don't
to
count.
have this night. I want to invite people over and play do this thing called like the worst film you've ever made, where everybody comes with like exactly those projects that you're talking about that you don't want to talk about, and then we all just, you know, have fun and make fun of each other because those first film projects are, yeah, I know what you mean. You don't really want to pull those out of the vault.
And that'd be so vulnerable because filmmakers are, I don't want to say sensitive. We're sensitive about our work and we love our work, but we know when it's bad or we know when it's something that makes you feel a little insecure to put out there to the public.
But you still learned something making that thing that made you feel insecure. And I still learned a whole bunch of things from making the thing that I'm not very proud of too, you know? So, I mean, I think it is more important to like have no shame and just be real about, you know, who you are and what you're doing. And so that's one of the reasons I wanted to do it, is just it would be a lot of fun to see those horrible things we made.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Oh, well, I'll let you know when I host it and you come over.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely show up with that exact film. It's way too long, way too drawn out. But it was like in a time where I was like, okay, so I write and I write comics as well. So I have a comic book company. So I was like, everything has to be related to the comics. So
Right.
everything I was writing in the moment was like related in some way. So I feel like I just went way too far with trying to intertwine it in this story that had nothing to do with it.
But you might come back around to that somehow. Like maybe it doesn't fit right now the form that you made it, but maybe there's something about that that's going to come back around as you make more films. Because there's probably the seed of something really good in there, and you just need to execute it differently. So,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I wouldn't say it came back around, but the original idea of what I was trying to do, I ended up writing a feature for it, and it kind of centers around this serial killer who happens to have superpowers, but I don't want to ruin it.
Okay.
Maybe one day it'll get made, and then someone comes back to this interview and it's like, "Oh, I know the whole plot of this movie already."
Yeah, don't give it all away.
Yeah, but that's where it really centers around this kind of cosmic being who's a serial killer somehow. But
Oh, I like the sounds of that. Maybe
yeah,
there's something to it.
yeah, I hope so. I wrote a lot of pages to it, but for you, what is something that gives you like the urge to go make something? Like, are you just do you get the spark, or are you like seeing images in your head?
Hmm. I think when I'm making a drama, it often is images in my head that I can see in connection with the story beat or something, and I'm like, I wanna see that. And then it's the thing that I can like build story around almost. But it's funny because almost inevitably, whenever I end up in production, that seed thing is the thing that I have to give up. It's like the kill your darlings, It's like, well, it doesn't really work anymore. So the whole film works, but just this one little bit that was like the center point that I was thinking about doesn't fit anymore. So that's happened more than once. But I think for me, it is a deep engagement with whatever it is. So it could be with subject, but it's often with some relationship between material and subject. So when the form and the content have something to do with each other, then I'm much more engaged. I also do expanded cinema performance. So I am like performing with 16 millimeter projectors live for an audience. And that's a really engaging like way to be, because I'm not like editing something and going, this is the first thing and this is the second thing and the third thing in a linear fashion and saying these, like, I make that connection for you when I say this is shot A and shot B and shot C. I make the meaning with the edit, right? And so I'm kind of like almost like forcing a thought into an audience's mind, and I don't necessarily want that to be the case. So when I'm doing expanded cinema performance, I'm like blurring those boundaries a little bit because I'm overlapping images and playing them on loops, and there's thousands of them that I can choose from as I make this sort of composition. And the sound too, sometimes I'm doing that with the sound, but it's all in relationship to the audience as well. So they're there and they're like kind of taking part in it. And one way to think about it is that the film isn't finished until it's like hits your irises and makes an image on the back of your mind. That's where the film is sort of eventually finished, is in the mind of the viewers. So this is the kind of stuff that I like. Whenever there's something really hard about it, though, I'm pretty excited. So this, I've made handmade emulsion for about 15 years now. I've been making my own film stock, and that was kind of because in 2010 or so, Kodak discontinued my favorite film stock, and I was like, wait a minute, I'm not gonna let this big company take my art form away from me. So I decided I would need to figure out how to make it myself. And it's really hard. So that was pretty engaging for a long time. But then, yeah, when I started making this documentary, Tuktuit, Caribou, the idea of making the gelatin that I use in my handmade emulsion recipes from caribou that I harvest myself, that I'm skinning and fleshing myself and figuring out how to incorporate into the film stock itself, that just made it that much more difficult and that much more engaging for me to learn about. So yeah.
I love people who love a challenge, because that means you love the process and you're almost for me, I'm addicted to the process of just, writing, producing, and seeing it fulfilled. And
Oh yeah, that's
I
best.
could tell, that you love the process of what you do,
Yeah.
and you're passionate about that, and,
Yeah.
and you love a challenge. That's
I
that's 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 the number one thing I've learned. You love a challenge,
do. Yeah.
and if I ever see something that seems so challenging, I'm just gonna email it to you. Like,
Definitely.
hey,
Let me know.
crazy new experimental style here. It
Yeah.
looks impossible to me, but I think you can get it.
Yeah. I'm game. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, obviously, like, I like all that old stuff. Like, all my film equipment was made in the 50s and 60s. And maybe the newest thing I own, well, audio recording equipment is pretty new, but all the film stuff. I mean, I don't think there's anything that isn't at least 50 or 60 years old that I use to make the films. So it's, I like all that stuff too. Just like the idea of like just being able to re-engineer something or change the way something was supposed to be used. Film is the first medium, I think, that I can think of that exists. It's entirely reliant on the industry that gave birth to it, right? Like, I can make my own pigments. I can burn some twigs and make some charcoal. I cut a potato and make it print. Not to belittle those art forms in any way, but you can re-engineer most other art forms. Film, it really doesn't exist without that industry that gave birth to it. And the kind of film that I make, it's not really what the industry had in mind. So it's a little bit about like taking those machines that were made for something else and figuring out what else we can do with them, and really opening up the world of how we see things and how we think about film as an art form, or as a medium, and what it's capable of. So it's a pretty exciting time to be working in film, I think. Maybe now that the industry is sort of, less interested in exactly what it does. And I mean film, not just like digital film, but like film. What it does.
And I feel like film is making a resurgence, because people want that real feeling texture, when they watch a movie. And for me and my friends actually had a conversation about this the other day, about how once it moves past HD, we hate how it looks. Like once like cameras got past HD, it feels like the film started to it started to feel like fake, and I feel like that's what caused the resurgence with people using IMAX cameras, using Panasonic cameras, because they want that real feeling, that raw feeling in the texture of the film, which is hard to get with. I'm using a Sony right now, and it's like I don't like to use it on films, but I like to use it as like a digital camera used during interviews or for photos, stuff like that.
It's funny you say that, because I think I'm probably like similar to you. Once it got to a certain point, it was just too high resolution, but I stopped at SD. SD was like too high resolution for me. And I'm serious. Like, I shot a film, I think it's 2010. There's a few films that I made around that time that I used a video camera for, and almost all my films have started on film and finished on film even. I think there's only like 3 of them that were generated on video. Like, I shot video to make them. And I found that the lens, like switching from the little Bolex lenses and things to like this very big, powerful zoom lens. I think I was using a Canon GL2, and I was shooting a portrait of an Inuit elder, and she couldn't see very well. And I was shooting this portrait of her, and I was offended by the lens that I had, that I could get so close to her and like see so much that she couldn't see, and it didn't seem fair. And so I started shooting I would like melt plastic and glass, and I would put that in front of the lens, so that I was shooting through melted plastic and melted glass or broken glass, so that to sort of like wreck the focal attention of the lens, because it just didn't seem fair or right even, that all of the world was in such incredible sharp focus when my subject couldn't see as well either. So it was like a little bit, again, like form and content, trying to like relate those things together to make it have a more make it feel like a more authentic thing for me to be doing. But video, yeah, that was SD. That was like a Canon GL2, so it wasn't even like 4K or anything like that, right? So
I do photography a lot, or I used to on like press lines and stuff. And I had like a big like 70 to 300.
Yeah.
And so I can't remember who it was. It was a woman. She said, "How close are you?" And I was like, "Oh, not that close." She was like, "Well, back it up even more." And I was like, "No one wants that, like, you to be that close on their face and like get every detail of their face." And I feel like I just saw, I think Fujifilm dropped the camera, or is dropping a camera that goes back from like the 1950s. You can like, it's a click of a button and you get that feeling. Probably digitized. It doesn't really feel that way, but it looks similar. But I think it goes all the way back to the 50s to 2020, and you get like 100 years of like film looks. But I think it's
crazy.
It might be an instant camera. I'm not sure if it does video or not. It looks like a film video camera, but not necessarily sure.
Interesting. Yeah, all kinds of technology. There's so much you can do with things these days.
What is a film format you haven't tried yet that you want to try?
I mean, I haven't tried shooting on IMAX. I've used it as like material film, like literally as a surface, which is still what I would probably do with a lot of it. But yeah, I'm interested in shooting a film on probably 35 millimeter. I haven't tried making my own emulsion for 35 millimeter yet. There's a lot of surface texture when you make your own emulsions, so it's big interruption in any size of film frame, but that's something that I've been wanting to try that I haven't done yet. It's also harder to get it to like coat on the base because the base is so much bigger. So that's something I haven't tried yet. Yeah, I don't really like sit around and dream about or think about like digital cameras or anything like that. I've got lots of friends and lots of my students are super into those sorts of things, but I don't know, for me, film and video actually are different things. They have different ways of engaging with the world, and then they sort of insist upon them, like the way in which you shoot with film or the way in which you shoot with video. You can certainly make them do some of the same things, but for me, they're different tools for different purposes. And so usually when I'm as an artist, like if I'm going to engage with something, like then I'm going to want to play with what it can do, not just use it to do something else. So just like in film, if you think about film, modern film stock, that commercially made film stock is pretty incredible stuff. It is really beautiful, and it's done an incredible job of being a perfect window that just represents the world in front of you. So it's like making a direct copy of what you see in front. So you do this beautiful lighting and the film captures it, and then you use that in your film. But what I'm interested in is a different kind of relationship, I guess, with those materials. It's not about a perfect window of representation. It's really about engaging with those things in a different way and thinking about what it can do, what I can do, what we can do together. And so even when there's really massive failures involved, I'm pretty excited about those things because I can always do something with it. Even if the film comes out blank or black, I'll still have learned something. And so it still has engaged me. So if I was going to think about a medium that I was going to take on that I hadn't before, it would probably be in a way to engage it where it's doing something it's not intended to do, honestly. That's probably what I would try to do with it. So
gotta muck it up a little bit, you know?
Yeah. Because I'm an artist at heart. So
yeah. I love that. Are there any other art forms that you work with, or are you strictly film?
No, I do all kinds of things. I do beading. I did a show at the Contemporary Art Gallery this past year that involved other pieces that had caribou hide in them, but lots and lots of beadwork as well. I do felting. I do drawing. I have a degree in drawing, actually. So drawing is it was sort of like my first love before film. Was trained sort of as a visual artist. And so I paint and draw. and yeah, just generally engaging with materials in all kinds of different ways. So,
That
yeah.
I'd say that was one of my first creative loves, is drawing as well.
Yeah,
I used to
yeah, yeah. You do
always,
comics for sure. Yeah.
yeah, I used to always draw like random. Maybe I was just a kid in the urban city, but I used to just draw the most random like situations with like Nickelodeon characters, or
Yeah.
um, I used to draw a lot of SpongeBob. SpongeBob was my favorite cartoon. growing up. So
Nice.
it'd be like SpongeBob doing some random thing, or Bugs
Wow.
Bunny doing some random thing. That's what really got me. And then I don't know. One day I was just like, I talked to my mom, and I was like, I want to go to this art school. And then I ended up going there like the following year, and it was kind of up from there. I did some theater, did some choir, drawing, sculptures, and I don't know. It kind of set me up to have a different way of thinking as I grew up and in college. Ended up being
Yeah.
a filmmaker, I guess.
Well, that's cool because it sounds like you started in like, you're thinking about character and you're thinking about story, getting a
Mhm,
character to do different things and what you're doing. And what I always did when I started drawing was I would draw things observationally. So it's funny because think about the kind of stories that you're making and like even animation, like you stuck with your core kind of through line. And I've also done the same in a way because you started off this interview sort of saying like it's observational documentary, and that's what I would do. I would draw people that I saw doing things, so I would do like live sketches of things. So that's kind of interesting. Still,
yeah.
still kind of
Um, my last question I have for you. I don't
right.
want to keep you for too long. This is the last year of Sundance in Park City. What does it mean to have your film a part of that history?
I mean, that's pretty incredible. Sundance, obviously, and everything that Robert Redford has done, it's incredible. I got to attend Sundance last year as a writer and part of the Sundance Native Lab put on by the Indigenous Institute, and it was a pretty incredible experience. And I never thought for a million years that my film would actually screen at Sundance. And so when I got invited back with my film this year, and knowing, like being kind of like a little bit around that vibe about the idea, like, is Sundance going to be here anymore? Thinking maybe that last year was the last year,
Mhm,
it's a pretty incredible experience, and I think that everybody will have that in their hearts and minds as they walk the streets of Park City and Salt Lake City this year, thinking about that and knowing just especially with sort of his passing this year and
mhm.
just how significant that place is and has been for so long. Um, it's pretty momentous to be involved in it, and I'm real excited to be there.
Yeah,
Maybe I'll see you on the streets there sometime.
yeah, for sure. I'll definitely be walking around. Will hopefully be at your press line for the documentary shorts. That's my goal. I don't
Yeah,
really know until it's kind of weird with the press lines. It's like you might get a response today. You
yeah,
might not get a response until an hour before.
yeah,
So it's like it's so hit or miss, and I plan on being there. So I'll
cool.
just say I'll see you then.
Yeah, we'll come to the premiere for sure. That's January 23rd at the Library Center Theater, I think, and it's about 11:45 in the morning, I think,
Hmm.
on
Yeah.
Friday the 23rd. So I'll see you there.
Okay, I'll see you there. I want to thank you for doing this with me. I had a
My
great
pleasure.
conversation. All right, that was Lindsay McIntyre. Thank you guys for tuning in to Kicking In With Tyree. I'm Tyree. Peace.
Ducked off low key, yeah, you know me. Kick it with Tyree, hit it three like Kyrie.